Hello everybody and welcome back to the EUSCC Qualifiers, day number 1 for the EU boys, and we're about to jump into set number 3 between Beltslap and Thunderhead, two titans amongst the EUSCC and SOC respectively with themselves here. My name is J-Mac. With me is going to be Trelly here on this third set of the day. And we got some big names on both of these squads. I mean, Beltslap, a lot of the same players that we've known and loved. Thunderhead coming off here from the SPL qualifiers to see if they can make a run here in the SCC.
Yeah, big names, as you just said. I mean, it's going to be a tall hill to climb for anyone to try to take on Beltslap right now just because of that name recognition. It's going to bring a little bit of just that intimidation factor. You have that veteran leadership, and Trixtank has been around the scene for, I mean, as long as anyone can remember. If you've been watching competitive Smite, that name should at least ring a bell. Obviously, Johnny in the Jungle, which just came off his SPL run. So, I mean, this is going to be an intimidating task for anyone, but Thunderhead, as you said, they also have some heavy hitters.
It's going to be a big matchup here. Winner of this one does go into the EUSCC. We still have the Winter Frogs and Late to Scrims coming up after, and a nice little look at the bracket there will show you just the journey that some of these teams have had and some of the journeys that these teams will have if they end up losing this set here. I mean, lose this one, you still got to play at least 2 more before you can have that chance to qualify back in to the SCC. 6 spots up, 2 have already been claimed. And talking about Beltslap, they were the dominant force, I believe, is in Season 7 when these guys were really the heaviest hitters. Then you had teams like Elysium last time around who were also really running the show. And you kind of have a mix of those two teams here. Really talking about Beltslap, as you mentioned, Trixtank, probably the biggest pilot and leader here amongst this team.
Yeah, Trix is. I always say this when I cast Trix's games because he has this mentality where he forces these plays. Even if they're not there, he'll make it look good. Like, even if he just blinks into 3 people, somehow he'll make a good play out of it. He'll make a great team fight. He's going to find the initiation. It's just great to watch him force these things. He loves to get aggressive, and it's the game style that you just love to watch.
And then we get Johnny back over into the jungle, back into his old stomping grounds here. I mean, going through Season 7, Johnny was one of the most dominant players in the SCC, period. Not even just the EU SCC, in the SCC as a whole. He seemed like an unstoppable madman. I mean, Alquang, Bakasura, Kali were like the 3 gods that this man dominated on. You throw the Loki in there as it started going on. But now back here with Itori, Zeros, Trixtank, and Ikram. So we do still get a little bit of that former Valkyries, you know, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Just the essence of the former Valkyries.
Exactly. That's the way to go here. Between Johnny and Zeros, I mean, they were the jungle mid together in the SPL last season around, now coming back here in SCC.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean, and I get what you're saying. And this team, they take the best of what they had, and they're turning it into this new, just dynamite roster where I remember one time Zeros had just not rotated over the fights on Nuwa. He was just kind of just popping off his ult and doing everything he could, but staying in and farming. And then you just look up, and somehow he's got a 3-level lead, and he hasn't even rotated to any of these fights. So Zeros obviously is going to be able to find all of this farm and just be dominant in this mid lane. Every single person on this team is a threat.
I mean, just a scrappy team nonetheless, and that's kind of the style that we had with teams like Beltslap and Elysium in seasons past. Was they were the more NA style of play when it came to EU. EU is always talked about as being this very slow-paced game, very methodical. They take one little fight here and there, but that's only if they can get something off the back of it. But at least as of these last couple of weeks, Trelly, the EU region as a whole have been very scrappy in their first 10 minutes of play. We're seeing games that get 40, 50 kills in only 20 minutes of play. And Thunderhead is no stranger to it, going up against Just F6 during the SPL qualifiers. We got to see how much they wanted to box out, try and adapt to this NA style. And it seems that Thunderhead have been able to do so far.
Yeah, I do like that this EU sort of meta has shifted a little bit, lit a fire under them, so to speak, because right now, if you're not getting aggressive, you're not matching that pressure that you're met with in this meta, I mean, you're going to get rolled over, as we've been talking about. This duo lane pressure, these obelisks, these early gold furies have been sort of the play style we've been looking for, and if you're not able to match that, if you're not able to, conform to that, it's just, you're not going to have a great time in these leads.
Yeah, Wengu, Ray Shadow, It's Mark, Dark Wizard, and Chekyo rounding out the roster here for Thunderhead, so no changes to this team coming from the SPL qualifications into here. We have had some teams like Leoncitos make adjustments to their roster before coming into this tournament, but no changes here. And similar to their counterparts with Just F6, it's a team that's been around for a while. They've been scrimming with some of these top SCC teams, and they've been able to make some strong standout plays. Mark, probably one of my most improved players coming from Season 8 into Season 9. His play at the SPL qualifiers has been mightily impressive.
Yeah, as long as they're keeping up the style of play that they've been after. I mean, even if they have dropped a game here or there, obviously if you're learning and you're taking that information, obviously these are from the SPL play-ins here, so taking these experiences against these teams, maybe have a little bit more experience, maybe it's a little bit more time as a unit, but as long as you're learning from that and they're going to use that here in this SEC tournament, we can expect to see that improvement, and I think it's going to be a tough match here.
Yeah, especially in that dual lane, as you were talking about a lot of the aggression towards things like the Obelisk, that Alpha Heartbeat camp that's kind of been adjusted. So we've been seeing some nerfs kind of across the board to the dual lane side farm of the map, which is why we were seeing a lot yesterday with North America, where we're seeing a lot more of that solo lane focus. Itori versus Wengu should still be a very potent matchup there. I mean, Wengu has made some massive improvements from Season 8 until 9. He's been able to hold his own there. But Itori has been one of the dominating solo laners in the EUSCC.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a slap fight over there for sure. It's just going to be depending on, does Johnny want to rotate over? Does Ray Shadow want to match that pressure as well? Because right now the jungle, I mean, it's just going to be super competitive, obviously. So if that's going to be where they want to take that pressure over to that solo lane, as we were just saying, I mean, there's going to be that blue buff pressure especially is going to be looked at.
We actually do have a few roster adjustments here for Thunderhead, as I'm being informed at the moment. It's going to be Marcus stepping into the mid lane in place of Mark, or it's Mark. It's Mark will be moving from the mid over to the support role, and then we're going to have Mecha Black stepping in towards that solo lane. Another player who has been around the scene a long time. All three of these guys have been playing for quite some time in the EUSCC. So with some roster shakeups here, with some kind of shifting around of the roles, Charlie, we've been seeing with some of these teams that having a sub-in hasn't really bothered me. I think the first one that comes to mind for me over is on the NA side for Stops Time. Chin Fu steps into the carry role, ends up being just as strong, maybe if not better than who he may have been subbing in for. But how do you think a kind of a triple shift changes things up for Thunderhead?
I mean, a triple shift in my head, it's almost a completely different roster, right? Changing roles entirely, that's going to be a complete mindset switch. You're not going to be focused on that engage and the peel. Now you're the mid lane mage. You're trying to provide lots of AoE damage, confirms on objectives, that sort of thing. So definitely a mental game over anything, trying to just get to the new comms, new teammates, trying to get those scrims down. But if they put in the work and they've been practicing together and they've known about this change for a bit, then I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, dropping in a couple of subs here is going to change up the way that picks and bans change around as well. We always see that with new subs. Sometimes when you sub somebody in, you want to make sure to get their god first, if they're comfortable. That way they're not having to drop themselves back in. With Hunter role, for things like Chin Fu, Izanami, those are kind of gods that you can just slot in really no matter what onto there. But now that you're throwing It's Mark over into the support role, Mark did like playing that E-set in mid. We've been seeing a lot of E-set support, some E-set jungle obviously here, but it is going to be difficult. It's a completely different mindset shift for a lot of these players in these roles, especially going from mid into support. So we'll see how that kind of changes things up here. Picks and bans for game number 1 between Thunderhead and Belt Slap. Thunderhead will be that first pick selection. Curious as to where their drafts will go.
I mean, if I'm Thunderhead right now, I have to imagine you're trying to take away some of that duo lane pressure because, as I've said, Trix is going to be coming at you and coming at you hard. You're going to want to get rid of those very high-pressure Guardians and sort of Assassins that are played in that meta. Fenrir is a perfect example of that. You're going to be jumping in at level 2 constantly, creating that stun, creating that pressure, trying to burn those beats early. So I think that's a great place to start for hitting Belt Slap.
Yeah, you do not want to give Trix Tank something that he could just step on the gas with early. Fenrir, a perfect example, as you highlight there, of not wanting to give that one over. Serket also comes to mind as gods you probably don't want to give over, though Serket not really in my mind a Trix Tank kind of god. He usually likes to go for a little bit of those bulkier, heavy hitting ones. Things like Bacchus really come to mind when it comes to old school Trix Tank. I think Bacchus for me is probably number 1 in the back of my mind, but so far it will be Fenrir, Bellona, Soul on the side of Thunderhead. Thoth, Nemesis, interestingly enough, been seeing a little bit of a rise on her in the jungle, even in as far as bans been going. And then Amaterasu, no surprise on there. With first pick, Thunderhead have a lot to think about here, and there's a lot open for them to grab.
Yeah, for me, the Bastet immediately is going to jump out, but the Kleena on the other side is going to be what Thunderhead opt to pick first. Both of those picks a little bit ago, this would have been no sort of surprise, but Bastet has climbed so much higher on the picks and bans chart for me personally, and now Kleena is going to be that choice that I go for here. It does provide that pressure, lots of ganking you can do with the Kleena. She has a lot of mobility, being able to go in and out of those walls effectively, so I see why they value it.
It's going to be Heimdall Osiris on the opposite side here for Belt Slap. Absolutely no surprise seeing Heimdall locked in. This is Echrome's number 1 god selection that he goes to. I think at the end of last season in their last game of regular SCC, he had a 20 kill game up against the opposition. I mean, this god is synonymous with Echrome at this point. Maybe a little surprised they first picked it, but I'm not hating that they grab it here. Couple that with an Osiris. I feel though, now that the Heimdall has been picked in, that gives them the pick a litter. How do you feel about them just giving up a Medusa though, Trulli?
At this point, I think Belt Slap just values the safety of the pick. I mean, we saw earlier today Vaporish Coast wanted his first pick Heimdall every chance he could. These EU ADCs, they value this Heimdall pick very highly. Maybe it's not the pressure that Medusa brings, not so much that early kill potential, but at the very least you're safe, you're comfortable, and you're just on a pick that you can do whatever you want with. It's very easy to accept these ganks on the Heimdall pick specifically. So as long as you're staying back, teleporting under tower, I think valuing this Heimdall, making sure you're on an ADC you feel comfortable with, it works out.
Very aggressive dual lane though. Medusa, Horus are the final picks there for Thunderhead. Belt Slap round out with a Bastet, which was the god that we thought would have been first pick on the side maybe here of Thunderhead. But that makes it all the way to 6th, 3rd there for Belt Slap. As the bans come through, Gilgamesh and Bacchus going back there, so you don't want to give Trix Tank something that will get that extra bit of pressure in that dual lane. And then an Agni. So the top 2 mages so far in that mid lane do get banned out here. Absolutely no surprise, though, seeing as how this flat pin meta really does seem to favor Agni and Thoth, respectively.
Yeah, and the Hera ban is what they're going to finish off with there. I haven't seen too much of that Zero's Hera recently just because the meta hasn't been her favorite right now, but Hera's still able to do a lot of damage, and he has pulled it out before. Obviously, for me right now, banning any sort of Zero's pick just doesn't make sense because his god pool is so deep. We see him pull out the Nuwa so many times this week, and that's just because he felt like playing Nuwa. It wasn't like Nuwa's crazy in this meta or anything. Zeros wanted to play Nuwa, and they gave him Nuwa, obviously, right now. The Bacchus, I think, was exactly where they wanted to look to stop some of that aggression. Obviously, you already have the Heimdall pick, very safe. And Trix opting to go for the Ganesh here, which, for me personally, the last time I saw this Belt Slap roster lose, Trix was on Ganesha, and I kept saying how he wasn't getting active enough. You can't really find the aggression on this Ganesha pick because you want to stay back and peel. So I like Ganesha right now in the meta, not really a Trix pick for me.
So a little bit of a dark omen there as far as the Ganesh is concerned. Didn't show success for Belt Slap last time. We'll see if it can do it this time. Now with a Zeus as a 10th pick. And it's wild to see the changes that have come to Zeus ever since his buff, ever since the change to that shield. He was like the #1 mid laner to pick up. The book build was so powerful. And now we've been kind of seeing a lot less of him. It's kind of been more of these niche picks. Moswall has been one of the #1 players picking this one up. And he's been trickling himself in through here to this Zeus pick. So we'll see how it can benefit Belt Slap here in game #1.
Yeah, one thing to note here, Thunderhead is going for the 4 Fizz comp surrounded by a Scylla. So if Scylla does not land these abilities, these I'm a Monsters are going to have to be hitting very consistently because right now, I mean, last time we saw 4 Fizz comp, we saw just everyone rushing those breastplates, and then you just feel like your mage isn't carrying enough damage at this point. So a lot of pressure is going to be on its mark right now, who's substituting in the mid lane at the moment. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on, can you land these abilities effectively? You're going to need this Scylla damage to be online hard here.
How do you feel about this Sun Wukong? Because it's a god that is sometimes reserved for players like Ducky. He really loves this one. But outside of Ducky when he was in the SPL and his time in the competitive scene, we don't really see this Sun Wukong often. How do you kind of feel that it slots right now in this current solo meta?
Yeah, right now, I mean, as you've seen the rise of these auto-attack warriors, we already see an Osiris locked in here. The Berserker Shield, Death's Toll meta is prominent, and that's what everyone's leaning towards, unless you're going for like a Vam Shroud Guardian sort of thing. So right now, Bluestone ability-based warriors are not in the forefront, but Wukong's always one of those picks that can kind of just match everyone's clear. He's very safe. He's got a very long escape with the transformation. So as long as Wukong's staying back and getting his farm, he's not going to really want to fight. I don't think you're going to be seeing any solo kills out of the Wukong right now, but he shouldn't be getting punished too hard by this Osiris.
When we talk about Zeus picks that pop up here into the mid lane, one of the things that's always kind of discussed is what is the god or the gods that are going to be able to dive to get to this Zeus? Do you think that Thunderhead has drafted the ability to get to this Zeus and kill him before he has the opportunity to turn around and kill you?
I mean, for me right now, you're going to have to be very aggressive on this Thunderhead roster. If you do go for the 4 Fizz comp, which they have, you have to get active early. And right now, Horus, Kleena, Wukong, it's got some solid dive towards this Zeus. I think Zeros is some of the best positioning in this tournament, so I don't think he's going to be getting focused too hard here, but they definitely do have a draft that can punish it.
We'll see how game 1 pans out for these two teams as we hop right in. Thunderhead versus Belt Slap. Winner of this set goes straight into the EUSCC. Loser, it's got to take a little bit longer before they have the opportunity to do so. J-Mac, Trulli, and Doug here in game #1. And looking through, we do see one teleport picked up here on the side of Itori as he is going for that Death's Toll start that you were talking into the Berserker Shield. Meanwhile, the other side here, Mecha Black hasn't gone into the teleport. Instead, he elected for an early set of beads and in quite a lot of sustain via his potions.
Yeah, I think if you're Mecha Black right now, your #1 concern is that Bastet gank from Johnny, as I was saying earlier. I mean, you're never really going to want to fight the Osiris. You just want to clear with your Cudgel and stay as far away from that wave as possible because you just don't have the Death Toll sustain to trade blows there. So right now, you're pretty much just saying, hey, if Johnny comes over and ults me, I'm dead, so I'm going to get those beats, try to stay alive as best I can, and then just put your pressure elsewhere. So I do like what Mecha Black went here. Definitely the safer, rather safe than sorry route.
We are seeing the more standardized start as far as these two teams are concerned. Nothing like we've seen over in NA where you throw the solo and the jungle together to clear out that speed, and then they go across the jungle here to get back camps blue, anything like that. It will be more towards the standardized. Put your jungler with your mid laner here, though. The side of Thunderhead, a little bit slower to get this red buff down. They have lost a lot of this mid lane pressure so far. Johnny and Zero's really getting to that lane much faster. I'm curious if it was maybe a missed pull on their aggro that put them so far behind.
It could have been. Marcus has the Sands of Time over the Conduit gen in the mid lane, so right now Scylla's clear is kind of hitting like a wet noodle. Obviously Zeus, some of the best early clear with that Gilded Arrow start as well, so a lot of just solid DPS from Zeros right now, so I do think they'll constantly be pressuring as Mark is going to get very aggressive over here in this duo
Dash
lane.
onto Trix and a dash from Chekio. One more auto's needed. Trix tank is using the minions to block through, but he can't block. The last auto from Mark. First blood goes the way of Thunderhead. They want a second one over on this right side of the map by Tori fighting in a 2v1, and with nowhere to go, the scream from Ray and one more auto puts Thunderhead on the board quickly up 2-0.
It seems like Johnny was going for the more tried and true, I'm just going to farm my way through the mid lane method right now, and obviously that is not what Ray Shadow wanted to do. He wanted to get active very early in the solo lane. I think that It's Mark played his lane quite well. Obviously, you just have the pressure with Horus, so that's not something out of the ordinary, but Ray Shadow going for the early solo gank, making sure that this Wukong is not going to be getting overpressured by Itori, and now Itori's going to have a tall hill to climb. The teleport has already been used, only level 3.
Not a great place to be having to use your teleport less than 2 minutes into the game. Typically, you want to save that after you're able to get a full first item. You go back, you buy it, and you come back in. And you might have to be making a long trek right back because, once again, Ray Shadow is in the solo lane. Mecha Black, though, misses with that Tiger Stun, and that was the difference between life and death for Itori. Now Johnny on the way back over. Ray Shadow rooted out, but Johnny very low on mana. He's not going to be able to fight this 2v1 either. It could be a successful invade here by Thunderhead if they can play their cards right, but Itori is not going to let it go for free. He'll be able to secure the buff, but can he secure his own life is the question here. No, it will not. Mecha Black turns that one around, gets the kill onto Itori. Ray Shadow on the run from Johnny, but Johnny doesn't have much mana to fight back. Needs one more ability, needs one nice little razor cut, but the stealth out of Ray Shadow hits Johnny with the dot, and Johnny has nowhere to go.
The jukes there were just so hard. I mean, Johnny obviously was just trying to get a little bit of mana with that multi-pot, just trying to heal up and try to do as much damage as he could, but just did not get enough for any of his abilities there. Unfortunate, but 3-0 coming out of the gate swinging for Thunderhead. I mean, Ray Shadow is getting very active right now. Your duo lane has pressure as well. Marcus has been poking out Zeros in the mid lane, so Beltslap definitely having to rethink their strategy here, at least trying to get some, you know, just trying to dial it back because right now they're losing a lot.
Yeah, it's not been a great start for Beltslap here, already down 1,200 gold, but XP still remaining relatively even here, only jumping up around 400 or 500 between the two at this point. A lot of that is thanks to Zeros just soaking up a lot of this solo farm in mid lane. Sure, he is behind Marcus at this point, but he's still able to get that farm out there. That Gilded Arrow kind of keeping him in here. And I kind of want to go and talk about this Gilded Arrow a little bit. We've been seeing more often these Eye of the Jungle starts from the Zeus, but the Gilded Arrow seems rather interesting here, Trelly.
Yeah, ever since Zeus got that buff on his shield where whenever the shield is active, he gets the movement speed and the attack speed, people have been trying to throw a few auto-attack based builds in there for the Zeus. I mean, every time you get 3 stacks on someone, you're able to detonate for some huge damage, so I like it from Zeros. I think he's the type of player that's going to be able to really make use of these auto-attacks on Zeus, and at the very least, you're getting extra farm because Zeus doesn't want to get too active early. So I think this is just a big brain play from Zeros, making sure he gets as much farm as possible while also benefiting from that Zeus buff where he gets the auto attack speed.
Maybe get himself a little bit of extra gold and get his physical defense online very quickly. Celestial Legion Helm, the first item rush, and absolutely no surprise. I mean, look across the board, you talked a lot about during picks and bans, this 4 Fizz comp from Thunderhead is just screaming for it to be built up here by the mid laner. Purple buff does get invaded by Thunderhead successfully at that. So E-Chrome and Trixtank will lose out on another little notch of experience. That one. No buff for E-Chrome means that he's not going to have the best time, at least, but with all that green buff that Trixtank has been kind of soaking up and holding him there, he'll have that purple for a little while longer.
Yeah, for me right now, Belt Slap's foot should be on the gas only if you are Johnny. He's the only one who really can get active with his items right now. I think he's going to want to stay around zeros consistently because that's your biggest DPS in the Zeus. And just probably stay away from this duo lane entirely. I mean, both effectively a level down. Trix isn't going to be doing too much damage right now with those Dharmic Pillars. He does have the Sovereignty enabled now, so that's going to be a big buff for your team. When Trix is around zeros right now, this mid laner should not be dying ever because of just so much raw physical protections early. But either way, if you're not Johnny right now, I doubt you're pulling the trigger too early.
We do see one offering stolen away by its mark, away from the side of Belt Slap. And I was wondering where the build was going to go for Mecha Black here, going up against a very sustained Happy Warrior with this Death's Toll Berserker's combo. And he's answered with a Soul Eater, an item that we don't see very often. Gods like Pele, Kleena come to mind whenever I think of this, but it seems Sun Wukong always kind of puts himself in that same conversation, Trelly.
Yeah, I mean, you just have so many abilities to proc it, and once you get some cooldown online, Mecha Black is going to be just, he's up right now 0-2 on this Osiris, so you pretty much just are full clearing with your Cudgel. You can always poke out, and anytime you need some sort of sustain, you can just use your abilities on the wave. So just a smart buy when you're ahead like this.
Very aggressive engage by Trixtank, and he gets punished for it. He'll take about 3/4 of his HP bar from that Veil Tear by the Ray Shadow. Level 7 on the Kleena, but down in XP to Johnny, even despite the kill and assist that Ray Shadow's gotten. He is sitting slightly behind in XP. There's Bastet on this Johnny, or Johnny on this Bastet, Bastet on this Johnny. Johnny's Bastet, the way to hear. Marcus on this mid lane Scylla, I think this is maybe the god that we'll be looking at a lot of as this game goes further on. This player is really going to have to make his impact. And for now, impact attempt to be made here. Dharmic Pillars dropped by Trixtank, and ultimate out of the Horus will get Mark and Ray Shadow out of there. A lot of scrapping, but so far, quick disengage out of Belt Slap.
Yeah, just a little bit of testing of abilities here. It looks like everyone's just trying to get their farm, but Mecha Black was going to make the rotation over. This would be a very early gold pull if that was what was on the table here. I guess he just, at this point, you're clearing the wave so quickly as Wukong. You have that sort of mobility. Even without the teleport, I think you can kind of poke your head over in middle lane pretty free because the bird just gets so much value making your way back to lane. So probably just seeing if he could help out the team there. But either way, I do think that this mid lane is going to be your big fighting point. Once Zeros gets this, what seems to be a Void Stone online, he's going to be extremely tanky for anyone, and he's just going to have so much damage, but will he be able to get it off is the question. There is a lot, as we talked about earlier in the P's and B's, to dive this Zeus.
Right now, just a little bit of back and forth aggression across the map here. It's 3 kills up for Thunderhead. Nothing for Belt Slap at the moment here. Game has slowed down a bit. We saw a little skirmish attempt to pop up there, but it seemed that Mark didn't want to make a full commit engage at an even standing point there. I mean, it was 3 versus 3, but Mark didn't want to take that fight, even despite the fact that the Dharmic Pillars had already been expended. So to me, that kind of tells me that Thunderhead don't want to play on even grounds up against Belt Slap right now. They want to play only when they've got that advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the best way to play this game currently. I mean, every time they've taken a fight, they've usually had a man up, except for that duo lane skirmish where I think Horus is just going to outpressure Ganesha every day of the week. So they're taking very smart fights, and they're not overextending. They have a small lead right now, and they want to push it, but they don't want to risk anything because, like I said, with a team like Belt Slap, they have that veteran leadership. Their shot calls alone should be so crisp that if they do get this small lead back, they'll be able to run away with it.
And something that we saw out of Belt Slap and Elysium in the last couple of seasons is even if they're losing out their early game, and they are so here, Marcus with a beautiful I'm a Monster takes down Trixtank for a 4th kill up now for Thunderhead. But even when Belt Slap and other teams at the top of the SCC were losing these early skirmishes, it always came down to these late game team fights out of them. And Trelly, obviously we're still only 9 minutes in. We barely have even a 2,000 gold lead up for Thunderhead, so this game is by no means over yet for either of these teams. But how does the team fight really look for Belt Slap to try and bring themselves back in as this game goes later?
I mean, at this point, I think Belt Slap is playing exactly the way they want to, besides Trix getting picked there. I mean, they don't want to step up too far. They don't have the lead to fight at the moment. I think Trix really needs some relics here as Johnny gets caught out. Lots of damage from Marcus, but it looks like Johnny's going in.
It's a good thing that Johnny had that relic, because he would have been a dead cat there Mark is putting out a lot of poke on this Scylla. Level 11 so far, tied for highest level on the map with 2 of his other teammates here. Mecha Black 11 on the Wukong, Chekio level 11 on this Medusa, winning these early boxing matches. And that's to be expected. I mean, when we saw Medusa make her rise back into the meta, one of the most common things everyone was saying is she just boxes better than almost any other hunter out there right now.
Yeah, especially in the early game. I mean, this Crusher just flows so well with her kit. She gets so much extra DPS as Strix is kind of posturing over here. Looks like he's just trying to sap some farm. I don't really think he was looking for any sort of gank potential. Like, because this Medusa, as we've just been stating, I mean, has so much damage. The Aussie just finished, the Crusher is online, so anytime she really wants to poke half your HP, she kind of just sends that spit over, maybe even pops a few ones, and the last raid is just going to do so much damage.
So, it's not going to be a Voidstone pickup out of Zeros. Instead, an item that we saw very popular for a very short while on a lot of the magical ADCs like Sol, Olorun, Freya. We're seeing Stone of Fall picked up instead this time by Zeus.
Yeah, Stone of Fall definitely fell by the wayside after it got a huge nerf because it was just far too popular. Pretty much anyone who had magical damage was building this item, even the supports, just because of how many mitigations it got you. Now, really only people with consistent auto attacks can make use of it, which Zeus is one of those picks, as Ray Shadow trying to get so aggressive over here behind the tower, just going to take that purple buff. But I think Zeros is just going for that survivability build, right? Zeus is one of those picks where you can kind of build whatever you want as long as you're staying alive and getting that chain lightning and that detonating off. So it looks like, ooh, as the juke happens here, but it looks like it's just going for that survivability.
Mark's in danger, walking up for an offering. He's got Chekio as an extra man to try and get that heal off Mark. Can he make it out of here? Detonate will not be enough damage. Mark just barely squeaking by. Marcus on the Scylla, though.
Johnny
has to use that I'm a monster, but Johnny is hunting down. Needs one hit, a body block of the cat, but the lash right after will make sure to clip Marcus, and it could be a double kill unless Ray Shadow has just enough health to live out through there. But Johnny finally strikes up and puts Belt Slap on the board.
Mecha Black did make the rotation over, and it looks like Itori is nowhere to be found. Doesn't have too much magic defense, as you can see, because he just got absolutely trunked by Zero, so he's going to have to run his way back. Just Breastplate and Soul Eater for that Wukong, so no sort of magic protections against that Zeus, obviously. Good rotation over, just to have that heads up in case they did want to pull Gold Fury off that one pick. Belt Slap is the team that is going to make that call right away if they have the damage to do it, so I think Mecha Black definitely in the right headspace, but Itori obviously knew there was no Gold Fury to go for here. He's just going to stay in lane, make sure he invaded those backs, and just get as much farm as he could.
Ray Shadow will rotate over to that right lane to soak up a little bit of that farm and try and catch himself back up to Johnny, who is starting to slowly pull himself away in this XP department. Level 11 on Ray Shadow versus Johnny sitting level 13 on the Bastet. Hasn't had the chance to go back to base just yet. Will do so now to pick up that second relic. Wondering if it's going to be a Blink or maybe be an Aegis. We'll just have to see right after this pause goes through. A brief moment to relax here after the action that we finally have gotten to see here. Been a very slow start of the game so far. Thunderhead, though, they did have that 2K gold lead earlier on, but now that Johnny has finally struck here for Belt Slap and getting a kill, over towards that dual lane to kind of slow their pacing down, where do you think that Johnny needs to continue to put his attention towards to try and bring Belt Slap back in this game, Trelly?
I mean, right now you have the Scylla ult down. I believe he had Aegis as well. Johnny's finally getting active at the two red items. I think that's your mark right now for Johnny. So Jotun's Wrath, Brawler's Beatstick. Both have been finished right now. Bastet is chunking. Pretty much anywhere he goes besides that solo lane, I think he'll be able to find some magic there. So because the Gold Fury is still on the map, because that's the big objective that everyone's going to be fighting over right now, I imagine he's going to look over towards that mid ADC spot in the jungle area and just try to find a pick there. And at the very least, just go for some crazy poke and maybe look for a pull. I mean, despite being a little bit behind, so to speak, Belt Slap still has they have the tools to pull this Gold Fury if they want to.
Well, they won't pull it at the moment. Instead, it's just everybody regrouping, going back to their farm. It's a Pyromancer startup here, though, by Thunderhead. With one of those Veils, they'll be able to start slowly willing through. Maybe not doing as much damage as they had hoped. And with Itori in the area, they're not going to commit to taking out that Pyro. But that's both charges of Ray Shadow's ultimate now on cooldown. And even though he does have 20% there with the Jotun's Wrath, will be some time before we can see that ult come back up.
Yeah, I do think that they were just trying to go for a little sneaky play there, but as long as Itori had a little bit of headset on, I think he was able to hear those whales coming a mile away, so not going to let them sneak that. Here we go, though. Johnny looking in that jungle exactly where he needs to, trying to find a pick right around that Gold Fury pit. Anyone in the jungle that finds this Bastet right now is going to find death or half their health gone.
Yeah, Johnny has 2 of those pen items online with the Mace Tree, looking for a 3rd one. Ultimate by Johnny does clip Ray's Shadow, pulls him over the wall and right into a lightning storm. That Aegis is only delaying the inevitable, but that heal was just enough to hold his life until Johnny leaps right in. I'm a Monster by Marcus. Who's he going to target there? It will be Echrome, caught trying to go into his own Bifrost. A perfect kill and make it a double there as Strix Tank goes down to the 3rd hit. Can he find a 3rd one? Doesn't seem so, as Johnny can jump his way on out of there, but what a turnaround by Marcus.
Just some great placed ults by Marcus. I cannot believe he was able to find 1, let alone 2. This is what I was saying. If Scylla is not hitting these consistent ults, your comp is going to fail, and right now Marcus is proving that he can carry the team. He has the magical damage in hand, and he will take everyone down if need be. This is exactly where you want your kills on for this comp as well. I mean, Scylla is the magic damage of your whole team, so you want to make sure she's getting those kill resets. So this is exactly what she needs to be doing, and Marcus is executing.
And maybe a little bit of that downside of the fact that it is a 4 physical comp here for Thunderhead, Scylla being the one magical. What a great god to have as your only magical damage. But Strix Tank hasn't really itemized into any kind of magical defense just yet. Sure, he'll have his natural protections as a Guardian up against magical, but he's only picked up a Pridwin, which doesn't give him a whole lot of magic defense to its name and a sovereignty. So right now, definitely not hitting for true damage out of Marcus, but definitely hitting very close to it up against Strix Tank.
Yeah, for me right now, it's the Ganesha curse of no beads, still level 11. Any sort of stun or lockdown is going to mean death for Trix for a few more minutes until he does tick over to 12. But at the moment, Trix is looking to get aggressive. The Dharmic Pillars are dropped, but I don't think they're going to be able to get anything off this.
He's just willing to throw that ultimate out like nothing. Just, we want to fight? Cool, I'm going to throw it. We're not going to fight? Cool, I'm just going to throw it anyways. Johnny throws out an ultimate that does find Marcus. It'll pounce right on top of him. That's a kill for the jungler. Flickering Spirit out of Ray's Shadow to chase out Johnny, but a perfect 180 root by Johnny may have just saved his own life. He'll go ahead and waltz his way back to Strix Tank, and Ray's Shadow might just be coming up empty-handed in this fight, but maybe not empty-handed for the rest of the team. Horrorsoul's in, but Johnny's over the wall, and Johnny should be out, but I don't think he spotted that Ray's Shadow is chasing him out. Root is good. Screech, not enough. And the Flickering Spirit's off, but the fail does find him.
Beautiful hit. That ultimate is not easy to land, especially when Johnny was ready with the juke. Just a great read. I was about to say how Johnny is just everywhere he needs to be. He was able to find Marcus with no Aegis available and just take him out. I think he actually outplayed the Aegis, so let me rephrase that. He was able to find Marcus, this big damage dealer that just got a bunch of kills, and then unfortunately just had to use the leap to confirm that, so was able to get caught out by Ray's Shadow. Finally finding some footing here. Ray's Shadow has just been a little bit under-farmed all game comparatively to Johnny, but right now able to get some free farm now that Johnny's dead for 15 more seconds.
Yeah, a little bit of a shutdown bonus does help Ray's Shadow. Doesn't quite get him back in just yet, but every little bit of hope is necessary. XP, though, is in favor of Belt Slap here. 2,300. We're on the side of Belt Slap, or on the side of Thunderhead. They are the ones who currently hold the gold lead, 700. Echrome able to get that Harpy and get out with his life thanks to the help of that Bifrost there over in the dual lane. Mark on this horse, still wanting to be aggressive. Thought for a moment that they did have Johnny in that mid lane when that Horse Ult comes through there with that across the sky. But a good little jump over the wall got Johnny out, only for a little while longer. But now this Gold Fury is kind of being looked at here by Thunderhead. You imagine that that's where we see the first real objective fight come through.
Yeah, I do think once one of these teams, and it's funny because usually you can tell which team sort of has the pressure and is going to be able to pull right now, but we're pretty much dead even. A little bit ahead in XP for Belt Slap, a little bit ahead in gold for Thunderhead, so neither team really has the edge here. Trix, once again, trying to get aggressive on Chekio.
We'll find the Dharmic Pillar damage. Echrome used the ult to get a little bit closer. Aegis by Chekio to delay the inevitable.
Beautiful hit.
As Echrome tosses the sword right back at him. But it's another ult in by the horse. It's only Mark this time around. Nobody came with them. And now surrounded by 4, caught inside the shield and the damage from the mid laner. Mark gets pulled right back into the lightning storm, and that should be a dead bird. Horus does go down. Mecha Black in the backline, but Marcus just off the mark with that ultimate of his own. Itori and Johnny will capitalize, taking out the mid laner, but Johnny does go down. Crushed from the grave is enough to get the kill.
It just seems like Belt Slap just turned this whole game on their head. Zeros finally gets into a fight and just starts absolutely chunking Mecha Black. I don't think you've got the health to live this one, man. Once that detonate comes through, Itori does steal it away, but I mean, they just did everything they needed to there. Marcus tried to find as much damage as he could. It was a beautiful dive by Trix, turned into Marcus trying to rotate it, or sorry, it's Mark trying to rotate in late. I just think that Horus ult was a big mistake. He probably should have bailed, but maybe because he thought his team was rotating over, they had a chance there. But, I mean, after that, Belt Slap just completely dominates that fight. Dharmic Pillar is already back up for this Gold Fury, and Belt Slap takes everything.
I guess that's the benefit of having that Pridwin online. I mean, you get that ultimate back up so often, starting the fight and essentially ending it all there with Dharmic Pillars. Belt Slap get a full team deicide to bring the kill count back to even here, 19 minutes in. But the gold finally swinging back their way now, about 3,000 up in just that one fight alone. Thunderhead are able to turn this game on its head. XP, a massive spike down. It was so close. It was like 1,000 XP that was separating those teams in one team fight. Has shot that all the way to now 8,000 up that Belt Slap have.
Yeah, Itori's just been slowly building this massive lead where even though he got ganked early, first blooded, I believe, or it was probably right around time when the duo lane got a kill as well. So either or, Itori was down pretty much the whole time and then just been climbing back to hit level 20 at about late 18, early 19 minutes. So huge XP lead in that department. But once this Osiris rotated over, I mean, they just have really nothing for it. He has a complete build advantage in my head for diving this backline with the full Bulwark of Hope. I mean, you're just never really tying to the Sill, I would think. We're going to see right now as he is getting contested, but look at that HP. I mean, that was pretty much just a little bit of poke.
Yeah, Itori does get forced out of that Lord of the Afterlife and a Dharmic Pillar out of Trixing, so two big ultimates used just to bail out the solo laner for the time being. Itori is level 20, finishes off his fourth item as a Witchblade to try and counter out some of the damage that Chekio can throw out here. Not going for the standard crit into his build, though. Right after the Aussie, we typically see things like the Wind Demon, but instead, Chekio has opted to go for a kin size, and now what appears to be an Odysseus bow as his fourth item.
Wow, that is interesting. I really thought for my money that was going to be a Silver Branch Bro. Just works so well with the Medusa specifically, but I'm thinking right now Chekio's like, I'm behind. I am 2 levels behind in that regard. I need to get as much kin size procs off as possible against these tanks that are diving me. Odysseus bow is the best way to do that, I guess, in his mind. So, gonna go for the Odie bow, trying to get off as much kin size procs, trying to shred the HP at the very least, but not too much penetration here. I think Chekio's gonna need to get that Silver Branch online ASAP to try to shred, because right now, you've got some tanky boys running at you.
Johnny's just throwing cats out like candy at Halloween right now. Every time it seems that we pan over him, there's a cat chasing somebody on the side of Thunderhead. And Pyromancer, just as quickly as it started up, Belt Slap melt it down. Chekio will do the same to the left side tier 1 tower. That one falls just as swiftly to at least even out the gold. But maybe that haste coming out of the base a little bit more valuable, and maybe some boosted value if Chekio can get this tier 2 tower. But he's going to back, not wanting to stick around too long. It's only E-Chrome rotating over here, but I do like the call to not stay around too long and really, potentially throw your life away to get that tier 2.
I'm liking what Trix did with his ability here, opting to go for the Divine Ruin just to get some great damage on those Dharmic Pillars, but also getting the beads, trying to realize that right now the only way he would ever die is if he gets locked down and hit by one of those I'm a Monsters from Marcus. So getting the beads just so he can juke that out and then just face tanking all the physical damage.
Tori face tanking some damage here, but then Nemean blocking a lot of those stacks through Lightning Storm. Plus damage from Itori, takes down Chekio. Mark tries to ult himself out as quick as possible. He'll make it out. Mecha Black barely able to get up into that cloud, and Johnny will chase down Ray Shadow, jumps himself right back out into the hands of Mark. It's Mark not going to make it out of here, though. Picked up by the cat, taken right down, and Marcus has to sit by and watch as his support and his carry have fallen in this fight.
5 for 3. Chekio was just caught way too far up, but the Fire Giant is still the point of contention here. Marcus was able to hide there. Tori did not see him, but it looks like Trix has spotted him out. He's going to have the damage to go for a steal, maybe.
Marcus is here. Fire Giant is getting low, but Marcus has to bail himself out, but he won't be able to get far enough. The dot, the bleed coming from Johnny is enough to take him down, and all 5 on Belt Slap will claim the Fire Giant and continue to push this lead up. 6,000 gold here, 23 minutes in. The experience still less so mattering as players are starting to hit this level 20. But look at all the gold still on the map for Beltslap to take.
Oh yeah, they have a plenty to get here. Mecha Black is going to get silenced out. I do think he's got the range here to just walk out slowly, but they are going to be going for these towers. Could have a 1v1 potential in the mid lane, but Johnny is just going to throw some poke, get the Aegis, and walk away.
Ray Shadow can go into the wall to try and spot him out and try to get some return fire back, but for every moment that Ray Shadow spends inside that wall, it's a little bit of extra health that he's losing. And a little bit of less defense that they can put up here. Tier 1 and Tier 2 in solo lane now gone at 2,000 more gold to Beltslap. And as everybody goes back to base, Itori grabs a Wing Blade as his final item and then gets that Death's Embrace. It's a Guild Arrow now finished up here by Zero, so he will be able to finish out that starter item. And right now, just with this back, it's seeming to be a starter build finish up for most of these Beltslap members.
Yeah, I love what Zeros has done with the build here. The Nimble Rod of Tahuti giving him that attack speed, the Diamond Arrow just for the raw auto attack damage, plus the gold that he's been able to accrue this whole game. He has the Stone of File and the Legion Helm for the survivability, and he's just chunking right now in the damage department. Obviously, Johnny is a little bit overshadowing right now because that Bastet can go so crazy at this moment, so Johnny's able to just do so much damage as is. But I just like the way that Zeros has rounded this build out with the Nimble Rod of Tahuti. It's just going to affect so well on this Zeus's kit.
And we'll see how much use it can be put to here as we start surging up this left side. Tier 2 tower will not stand for much longer as soon as Zeros and E-Chrome team up to take that one down. Johnny, the lone man here in the mid lane, he's got a Tier 1 to take care of. He's got a minion wave to help him do so. We are seeing a bit of a split up here by Beltslap, and it's a 3-2 towards mid lane compared to what we normally see where you'd put more of your eggs in the left side basket, and finally it will seem that's what Beltslap wants to do. 4 members grouped up on the left side. Phoenix, the minion wave coming in, the shield drops down, and Mark diving to the back line. Petrify doesn't stun anybody, but it puts E-Chrome in a hurting here. He's got to use the Aegis and use the Bifrost to get himself out. Trick Tank on low thresholds of health here. Mecha Black dives in, but Mecha Black goes down to the damage of Zero's first kill up now for Beltslap.
It looked like their first target was obviously E-Chrome, but Zeros needed to be the point of contention there. Huge chain lightning damage coming out from Zeros using the lightning storm as well. This Zeus needs to be looked at right now. If you are Thunderhead, you're all grouped up under a Phoenix. The lightning is going to start chunking.
There's still 2 ults up here for Beltslap. Nothing on the side of Thunderhead to defend, but this Phoenix is not taking a whole lot of damage. Ray Shadow throws out the last of his Veils, while Johnny solos out this mid lane Phoenix. First bird down, and should be a second one right after. Beltslap have very methodically worn away the resources of Thunderhead and have now stripped 2 Phoenixes off the map.
You really have no one on this Thunderhead roster that can confidently take the 1v1 versus Johnny right now in that mid lane. I mean, he just gets the Phoenix for free. He's got the Bumba Spear, so he's got the true damage auto attacks if he wants to use them on this Phoenix, which he obviously did. And it was so much that Ray Shadow was like, guys, I don't want to fight this Bastet. I'm going to come over here and help in left lane. People were like, oh gosh, we got to go help in mid lane now. And now you lose 2 birds instead of 1 at that point. So I think you need to send 2 people over to deal with Johnny and then defend that Phoenix anyways, because at this point you lost both.
Yeah, mid and left now gone. And now we come to the ultimate question here. Fire Giant's going away in about 10 seconds here for Beltslap, so that one will respawn shortly after that. But if you're Thunderhead here, you've lost 2 Phoenixes, you only have 1 left to defend, and you got Beltslap knocking at your door, could just be knocking at the Fire Giant here. Charlie, if you're Thunderhead, do you throw all of your eggs in trying to stop them at Fire Giant, or do you pull yourself back and try and rest on the laurels that you have at least 1 Phoenix left to fight under?
While I do think they are just going to have to give this one up just because of the way the minions are going to be pushing here, I think they have to try. I mean, I think their fight under FG, with the FG buff underneath their Titan is not the greatest. Zeros is just doing so much AoE damage. The more they group up together in this Titan room, the more they're all going to be get hit. So it looks like they are going to be posturing for a possible Ray Shadow steal. Everyone else stays back. Kalina could hide in the wall for that regard, but yeah, I don't think they're even able to, because 2 Phoenixes right now, someone's going to have to be very far away from this Fire Giant.
Yeah, it seems that it'll be Chekio towards the left side to defend, and Beltslap could potentially just not even care about this Fire Giant right now. Johnny will spot out somebody in the mid lane there. It's Mark, but he goes right back to base. And now does come that ultimate question for Thunderhead. Do they send Ray Shadow to try and stop this Fire Giant? Do they send anybody to try and stop this Fire Giant? But it seems so far that answer is going to be no. They're going to have to bank on the fact they do have 1 one Phoenix left to defend at. But if I'm Belt Slapping with how quickly they can kill a Fire Giant, I don't think Belt Slap's going to let them even try and defend the Phoenix. It feels like they could just go right to the throne room.
They definitely could, but they are the smart gamers here. They're going to be going for the Phoenix just in case. That way, if you do somehow mess up, as long as everyone doesn't get wiped at the same time, you still get a chance to reset and begin. But looks like they have that Phoenix siege coming, but Johnny is still posturing towards that mid lane, and this is going to be their issue here.
One final hoorah for Thunderhead if they can get a defense and get themselves back in this game. But they're going to have to do it quick because minions are pouring to the left-hand side. Johnny is harassing Ray Shadow with cat after cat over in this mid lane skirmish. But Belt Slapper still waiting for that minion wave in. They don't want to walk just yet under this Phoenix, playing it very patiently and waiting for their opportunity to strike.
Now these minions are pouring in. This is going to be the go signal. Trix goes in.
It's going to be a frenzy pop through, but Chekio is the one who gets popped instead. Itori with the first kill, Johnny with a solo under Ray Shadow, and Itori commanding this backline fight. Marcus does manage to get one, but that's all that Marcus is going to find. It's a double kill for Itori, and only Mecha Black left alive, but as he's getting sent through the realms and right back into reality, he will get shut down. It's all 5 gone on Thunderhead, and Belt Slap, just shy of 30 minutes, can take game number 1.
Just a beautiful positioning there. I mean, Johnny always wins that 1v1 against Raid Shadow in the mid lane. Someone has to stop those minions from pouring in. He's able to take them out. Then the 4v4 Chekio gets deleted before the siege even starts, really. Once you don't have an ADC, those tanks aren't going to die. And Zeros goes undying that game. 3-0 on Zeus.
Not a great position when the Zeus is able to go an entire game without really feeling any threat. And it felt like it was that way in just about every one of those fights, Charlie. I don't think I saw a single moment where Zeros had to struggle here. We'll see if Thunderhead can turn it around in game number 2 right after this.
Sabroso, cha cha cha. Sabroso, señoras y señores. Este es un baile que se llama cha cha cha. ¿Cómo es?
of a long-winded game number 1 here, but Belt Slap at the end are able to find themselves the first win in this best-of-3 set. But it wasn't easy for them, to say the very least here, Trella. I mean, the first 10, 15 minutes of the game, Thunderhead had control. They had the kill count. They were able to maintain their pacing. But, Trella, it really felt like one team fight over in that dual lane is where things just kind of spiraled out of control, and Belt Slap were able to wrangle things back in their favor.
Yeah, Thunderhead definitely driving the early stages of the game. I think they found a kill in duo lane, as well as Ray Shadow found a kill in solo lane right away. And from that point on, it just seemed like as long as they were playing around their Scylla, who was doing some big damage, found some big ultimates, they had the reins, and they were able to sort of focus the game they wanted. But then once we saw that fight, it was just all towards Belt Slap the rest of the game.
I mean, Marcus had some impressive numbers out there, but going back to that dual lane, the one that really turned things around, Chekio was already dead by the time that this fight goes through. Mark questionably solo ulted himself right back in, and then it just became a conveyor belt. One player after another jumping themselves into the fray. You know, Mecha Black uses his ult to get himself out, then Ray Shadow jumps in to try and fight on his own. Marcus gets chased out by 2. And this conveyor belt system just ended up really being the downfall here of Thunderhead at this point. And this was the moment where the gold, after Belt Slap gets this deicide, they end up getting a tower, they get a Gold Fury, and they snap that gold lead like 5,000 immediately.
Yeah, over what should have just been a pretty sick gank by Trix to kill Chekio, it just seemed like all of Thunderhead's like, we're in the lead, we can all consistently just go in here. Obviously, they did find the one kill when Marcus was able to crush at his feet to turn on Johnny just to make sure that he went down as well. But either way, I just felt like this was a super unnecessary fight. They could have just let Medusa go down and call it there. And again, once it's Mark ulted in after the fact, it just seemed unnecessary as well. But either way, they did what they had to, and they still did have that early lead. So this game is by no means out of the woods. They should be able to, get their reins back. But the real driving force of Belt Slap for me was this Bastet pick cannot go to Johnny again.
I don't think this Bastet pick should be going to anybody at this point. I mean, you and I talk about it kind of during the break of Bastet is just a monster of a god right now. I mean, the damage that just her pounce alone can do is enough to put the fear in the heart of any squishy god. And I cannot imagine if Thunderhead is first pick, that not only should they not give this Bastet over, but if it does get left up, Ray Shadow should be grabbing this god for himself.
Yeah, I think Myth touched on a bit right now. At the very least, if you're not good with Bastet, you need to get rid of it, because there's no reason to leave it up in arms right now. She does so much. She's very commanding where she can go. Her rotations are always very quick and easy because she can just jump and jump back. So it just seems like right now I have not seen an answer for this Bastet. Usually when you're letting it through, you have that sort of counter pick, but I have not seen one yet.
Yeah, very high pick and ban rate here. Let's jump in to picks and bans for game number 2 and see if this Bastet does make it through once more. Now with Belt Slap as the first pick, though, I cannot imagine that Thunderhead are going to let that god through. If you were the second pick and you just saw what Johnny could do on that god, I'm not going to let Johnny even have the option to think about if he wants to grab it as a first pick.
Yeah, but then that argument starts where, is there other picks that Johnny can play just as well? And of course, I think the answer is yes, but I think we're on the same page here where the Bastet just seems a little bit too oppressive right now, and at the very least, she's very easy, not like any skill shots besides that ultimate, which we've seen people miss the Huntress of Bast and still have great teamfight play, which not many characters can do right now, where you just waste the ultimate outright and still have great team fights.
Well, it will be Nemesis, Thoth, and Ho Yi. The first 3 gods banned by Belt Slap, Fenrir, and Heimdall on the side of Thunderhead. Now is the ultimate question. Does that Bastet make it through? Well, the answer is yes for the time being. Soul is going to be the last god banned. Very interesting here by Thunderhead going for these 3 bans. Obviously, Echrome's still very impactful on that Heimdall, but that's not the god that I would have imagined that they would throw a ban towards here. I mean, Izanami gets picked up, and that might be the most surprising thing, is that they're going to let Thunderhead even have the opportunity to pick this god.
Well, it seemed like neither one of these teams wanted to pick it too highly last time. They weren't first pick, first ban material. I think it was third pick, I believe, the Bastet did get through. So maybe at this point, they just don't value it as much as we see the value that it comes out at right now. Johnny, I do think that with everything that we've been saying going on, I do think that Johnny does get that amount of value on a couple different picks right now. So just making sure that Trix doesn't get that aggression on the Fenrir, and then obviously Zeros has a very sick Soul, and he was kind of just role-playing as Soul in that game with the Gilded Arrow start on Zeus, just wanting to be an auto-attack mage there. So I see where their head's at for sure, and they're just saying, you know what, we don't value that Bastet as highly.
After the performance that Johnny had, I'd be surprised that no team really wants to value that here. For now, it will be Izanami Bologna on the side of Beltslap. Meanwhile, Thunderhead gets Cernanos and Bacchus. So dual lane rounded out right away. We've been seeing a nice little rise of Cernanos as of the SPL qualifiers. It was the EU teams, Just F6 and Thunderhead, first ones to really bring this god out into the limelight and really show us what this god is capable of here. And then coupling that with a Bacchus up against Kumbhakar and Izanami, it seems pressure is kind of even on both sides, but maybe some nice fight over here on the side of Thunderhead.
Yeah, right now for me, last time I saw the Kumba was Trix picking it into a Bacchus specifically, because you do have a pretty sick matchup there where you can charge up the Groggy Strike to immune the knockup, and then you can mez out the burp. So Kumba does have a nice matchup into the Bacchus specifically. You don't really have to give up too much pressure there. Couple that with an Izanami who can clear the wave just better than anyone right now. So Trix just likes playing this Kumba into Bacchus. I thought last time that maybe it was just he wanted to play Kumba, but now it's pretty clear to me he likes it into Bacchus specifically.
And Trix is one of the few players aside from, it's always weird when I say this, aside from solo laner Mogao, who really has been showing a favoritism towards this god, specifically over in the EU region, really the only region that's playing this one out here. But Bastet Daji do get banned away, so we won't see the cat this time around as Thunderhead do get the opportunity to finally ban two of Johnny's hot picks away here. And it's a clean Gilgamesh in response by Beltslap, so still taking some shots at the jungle across the board. But now that Thunderhead get this Agni out here, they get one of those top pick mages, how does this kind of help them out a little bit to try and deal with Beltslap?
I mean, the same sort of concept I always have with Agni is that once you're against someone that doesn't have the greatest wave clear, obviously Nuwa can drop the fog to try to help, but she really does need to get very close to clear that wave with the shining metal. Agni is a pretty nice matchup where he can just poke you out incredibly easily and just try to make sure your life is just not very fun when you're trying to clear that wave. So Agni is going to be very safe here in this matchup, but that's a Chalk that just got locked in, and I can imagine anytime, because I can only assume it's either Bologna or Chalk in the jungle, right? That's what anyone would assume at this point. So whichever one of them, probably the Chalk at this point, is diving that Agni, is going to make his life pretty miserable as well.
That's what we think. So they throw out the Kumbhakar in the jungle to really throw a loop for everything, and then we don't know what happens beyond there, because then you throw up like Bologna support, who knows at that point. But with Bologna Chalk locked in, we've been seeing a lot more of the Chalk jungle, or the Chungle as it's been called, so aptly named by some of the fans and players out there. So we'll see if it is going to end up being that Chalk and jungle, or maybe we do get thrown for a loop and have Bologna in the jungle. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen that god go anywhere but the solo lane. I think she pretty much just has been residing there. But Kali is the last selection here, and for how late that first game went, it feels like Kali would be a perfect god to really take towards that late game. She is still one of those few true late game hyper carries that we have in the game at the moment.
Normally I'd agree with you, but to me, this whole Beltslap roster seems to be anti-Kali, right? You have the Kumba, which can easily just mez her and shut her down when she blinks in. Nuwa can wait for that destruction to end and counter with the ult after the fact, because Kali's never get Aegis because they always get blink and beads. And then you also have the Scourge from Itori as Bologna. So to me, this would have been, maybe if Kali first picked, this would be the roster you would pick to counter that. But Ray Shadow picks it on the back end, so he must be very confident here for this pick.
It is going to be the Chungle this time around. So Johnny on Shock versus Ray Shadow with the Mannequin Scepter Kali. And Mannequin Scepter might be the more interesting one of the starters to go through with here, because it's one that you would imagine any god that is more auto-attack centric, you just want to pick this up. You know, Mercury, Osiris, Erlong Shen, Kali on there. When seeing a little back and forth between there, and a lot of damage thrown the way of Trix and E-Chrome. Trix has a passive to help him out, but E-Chrome doesn't. And it's the early aggression out of Thunderhead this time around. Dual lane strikes them first blood yet again.
Unfortunate. They needed about 1 or 2 more minions to kill there, and then they could have hit 2, and Trix could have decided to go for the burp and the mez, and just, you know, put them to sleep, and so that aggression could have stopped. But it seems like they both were in the same headspace of, we're going to out-clear here, and they were just not correct. Once its Mark's stun went off on that Belch, it was just easy first blood for them.
What did end up having to expend the Frenzy to get it here, but that's part of why we've been seeing this Frenzy over in that support role, to try and get that level 1 pressure It pays off for Thunderhead as they do strike first. Yet again, Mecha Black losing this trade, jukes out the damage, but a minion right after that Archer trades out. Itori gets his team on the board a little bit earlier this time in game number 2. And Trix and Echrome maybe trying to bait Chekio and Mark because Johnny is on the rotation through. Belly flop out of Mark means that his mobility is gone. Chekio doesn't have much to his own. Johnny can waltz his way right over. Beads have been used and a teleporting after the hammer. Johnny needs 2 basics and he'll get those 2 to make sure to put another kill up on for Belt Slap, and the body blocks. Mark doesn't have very many options, very many places to go. Belly flop gets him out, and Trixtank will not find the confirmation kill.
I want to highlight that auto attack reset on the Chalk Ray, and there's only one way he ever gets that kill there, and it's if he pre-beads the stun, throws the axe, teleports to it, and then has to do the auto attack cancel on the Ray. And if you don't pull that off, you're definitely just stuck under a tower, not close enough to finish that auto. Beautiful play there. And of course, this was sort of the mirror of what happened last game, except no solo kill in solo for Mecha Black, and this term it's Itori. Early kill in duo for for Thunderhead, but this time Belt Slap answers back with that early rotation. So it looks like Johnny has learned from last game and said, you know what, I'm going to come over here early this time instead of staying back and farming because I am a warrior. I'm Chalk right now instead of that early game centric assassin. I mean late game centric assassin.
Trixtank does get knocked up by the belly flop there, but Mark won't have much more to go beyond there with Chekio. They still have minions that they need to clear out before they can keep their fights going. Itori with that nice solo kill means that he'll have the XP lead over Mecha Black for at least a short while. But Johnny wants to get the ball rolling once again. He'll go right up to Marcus. Dash still up for Marcus potentially, or maybe he's just holding on to it in case of emergency. He won't need it for now. He'll turn some of that damage right back towards Johnny. But Marcus is the one really hurting there. I mean, over half of his health, not just from the red buff clear, but from this damage out of Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny's going to be poking out Marcus pretty much whenever he wants to, because at this point, you don't want to dash you don't want to dash too early ever on this Agni right now, because if you do, the Chalk can just chase you down with the big AoE ult, so he's going to have to hold on to that dash effectively until the ult comes out, or at least try to. So as long as he's poked out, I think he's not going to be too fine. No one can really get to him right now. Zeros on this new op pick likes to stay back. He likes to get his farm. He's not going to get too aggressive, but you always got to watch that HP bar. Anytime it gets below that 90 point threshold, that's when Zeros is going to go into that ult.
Trixtank and Mark will square off in the jungle as supports always do. They won't get a whole lot of value from slapping each other around. Instead, it'll be who can get the better initiation, the better gank to the dual lane. Considering the fact that Mark was just chasing Trix the whole time, there won't be much to be had over there. A root from Trix and a dark portal out of Echrome. Puts a lot of poke there on a Chekio. He'll be able to dash himself back. Mark will body block to make sure that Trix and Echrome can't go too much further. Chekio does need to be careful. Level 5 now for himself. He can throw out that ultimate. It'll hit Echrome. That'll be the end there. A disengage more than anything from Thunderhead.
I do like the aggression over here from Belt Slap. Now that they do have level 5, the matchup really does, I think, favor Belt Slap in this regard. Echrome can clear the wave effectively. Trix really can shut down much of what its Mark wants to do on this Bacchus pick. So this was sort of what they thought they were going to do early game, but they just got a little bit baited by the Belch, and Trix is going to go for the solo kill.
He's going to get the root after. Needs the one more auto after the bump, but he misses it. Has to use the Mez.
What?
Trix?
No,
okay. No, I didn't see Zero. I was like, Trix, what are you doing? Like, why are you not going? That's a free auto kill. Zero's had to have called and said, dude, give me this kill, man.
100%. I love that we both had the same reaction of, why is he leaving it? And then you remember, oh yeah, you can just give Zeros the kill from wherever on the map right now because there's no sort of poke there. So actually massive brained me there. So good play by Trix, making sure that Zeros got the kill from far away. And it's Mark, I think, he was able to make sure they confirmed that one with the Intoxicate. So nice return for the purple buff at the very least, but love that play from Trix, making sure his mid laner got that kill.
The reaction that both of us had immediately was just like the spinning loading wheel on our face at that moment. We're like, what? you that's a free hit, just go take it. And then all of a sudden, all in one crashing moment here with that fire shard, Zeros puts himself up on the board. Like you said, nice play by Trix. And a nice support giving that kill over. I'm going to be honest, if it were me, I'd be doing everything I can to get kills on myself here. But Marcus, with a nice bomb placement, gets a kill up there for Thunderhead's mid laner. So I'll at least try and shore things up here. to try and keep Thunderhead in this game, just shy of 1,000 gold down on the Chaos team.
Yeah, it looks like the roles have been very reversed here, obviously, because the Chalk is going to want to get very much aggressive early tricks. Getting bombed out right now by Marcus, a lot of damage. That fire tick might do it.
Belch will stun him out, but the knockback coming from that ultimate puts Marcus in a tricky spot. Passive pop through by Trixtank. Zeros goes down, and Ray's Shadow's the one to pick up the double kill. Thunderhead trying to weasel their way back into this game. Even Johnny eating a lot of bombs out here. It feels like Marcus is throwing these out all willy-nilly. Johnny will be able to trade out and get a kill, but he's on the wrong side of the jungle. Doesn't get a chance to teleport to that axe. A perfect stun by Ray Shadow locks him down for Mark to get the kill.
Ray Shadow was able to pick up his passive target there as Itori steals away the blue buff. So we've said it already. You mentioned it before. Ray Shadow is going to be that ticking time bomb where this late game Kali is going to be extremely difficult to deal with. Almost a GG scenario once that Kali does get full build. But on the flip side, this comp deals with it quite well, but 2-0 early for Ray Shadow is something I certainly didn't expect. I mean, the Kali usually, this Crusher is a pretty big power spike, but a little bit of time. E-Chrome is going to look for Mark here.
Chrome goes aggressive. Fire Shard's not enough. E-Chrome needed one more auto. Maybe he can find onto Ray Shadow, who's low in mana but has that ult. Ray Shadow playing with fire here, doesn't elect to use Destruction. Trixtank wants the kill, will blink in. Mez up against two, won't find Ray. Instead, will find Mark and take that kill for himself this time around. Trixtank ties up the kill counts at 5-5.
Yeah, excellent play by Trix there, holding the epic uppercut. Knew that if he had to, he could have just ulted its Mark and confirmed that kill, but also knowing he has no sort of mana and there's no way he's outrunning my ADC, so I'm just going to leave him Mez there, use it if I have to, but gets to hold on to the epic uppercut now. So Kumba does have the ult if wanted, but Marcus is rotating over for Itori trying to proxy the wave.
Tori, Eagles rallies in place, maybe questionable up against three. That should be the death of the soul laner, but maybe not because Johnny is here. Itori low does go down as Ray Shadow's credit to the kill, but Johnny once again finds a pickup against Marcus. Lord of the Afterlife by Mecha Black just to hold Johnny in place. Ray Shadow might find a second one. Destruction though, Mez out by Trixtank, an epic uppercut to spare the life of his mid laner. Johnny will bait out for as long as he can, teleports away from Mecha Black and Mark, but can he run forever under this tower? It seems so. Unless Thunderhead's jungler has something to say about it.
That's the kind of peel you want from your support, but I don't think he's going to have the heal to live this tick damage. Maybe, it looks like he will, but now he's going to have a juke shoes here.
Plays the ultimate mind game, doesn't teleport in, but the leap in and the intoxicate from Mark will close out the kill onto Johnny, but Trixtank is back here. No ultimate this time for the Kumba, double Mez, and Itori, who died early on in that fight, is back from the grave to box it out once more. Ray Shadow low, and the fire shards out of Zeros will take him down. Mecha Black stuck in place by the Groggy Strike. And no chance that this Osiris should make it out here unless he's got great peel from his support Mark.
And the Emerald Eagles rally is going to come back up there. Great target selection, making sure that Kali is the first one to die there. There was a 3-0 bounty on Ray Shadow's head at this point, so getting that shutdown gold is definitely your most important. Then turning, obviously, to Mecha Black, who, and Osiris with no sort of escape at that point, that was just a free kill, but making sure that Ray Shadow was the first one to die, definitely a smart call here. As we have a little bit of a skirmish happening in duo lane, I don't think we're going to see anyone get too aggressive off that, just trading ultimates, but just great target selection, making sure that this 3-0 Kali gets shut down early on.
Yeah, you don't want to let this Kali go too far. Now with Ray Shadow on his first death. Actually goes for a Hasten Katana. Second item through. Not what I would have expected out of a Kali. An item that we don't see very often. It's been typical more with like the Scream style of build to go into a charge bow and then like kin size after that. But how do you feel about this Hasten that Ray Shadow's picked up?
So Hasten used to be pretty meta on Kali until the burst Kali build kind of fell into fruition, where you go Crusher into hi-rez and just go for that one shot. But I do enjoy the Shred Kali with some Odie Bow, kin size procs, maybe a Serrated thrown in there if you want to do. It just depends on how you really want to build her with her passive, obviously. So I do like this Hasten build if you are going to be sticking to these targets, and it's just going to be a little bit rough. The more auto attack focused you build, the more you're going to have to deal with these Trix is getting body blocked to heck over here.
Trix will not make it out. His passive procs, but that's only going to delay the inevitable on his life. Marcus picks up the final auto to get credit for the kill up against the Kumbhakarn, and is a decent epic uppercut, but even better body blocks coming out of Ray Shadow and the boys on Thunderhead, locking Trixtank in place without actually even having to use any CC to lock him in place.
Yep, that is going to do it. But, you know, just touching on that point one more time, with the Bologna, with the Kumba, I think the more burst effective Kali builds, you're going to benefit your early game. But obviously, late game, you just want to be that blender where you can just W key at everyone. So no matter what build you go on Kali, she's going to get online. But I do not mind the Hasten Katana. Just it's a little strange to see it this early.
Talk about gatekeeping a red buff here. Johnny will walk up to make sure Zeros could grab red if they want to. We saw nothing happen over here earlier, but this time it's E-Chrome coming up on the better end of the trade. Ray Shadow blinks in, destruction pop, but Trix Tank is here. Mez will not find its home. Instead, Ray Shadow gets the reset. It doesn't get full value thanks to the help of that new wad. Trix Tank wants this kill for himself, but Ray Shadow, the slippery Kali, able to walk away for a little while. Trix Tank doesn't have blink to close in that gap. Ray Shadow's nowhere to go. The question is, will the tower get the kill, or will Trix Tank get it?
Yeah.
The answer will be the tower getting credit.
I really thought that Kumba might have had the one to finish that, but I think he used it to close the gap and try to peel for his ADC there. Unfortunate. An assist, definitely not bad, but you would prefer that kill as Johnny forced into the ult here. Marcus takes a little bit of damage, but it looks like no sort of luck here, unless Trix has a clutch minion throw.
He's going to need it, but he uses the bump to get himself into the tower. Doesn't even need that because the Groggy Strike has the damage to take him out there. Kill for Trix Tank, finally gets the one that he wanted earlier on, this time on the mid laner. Chekyo back from the grave, gets the root on top of Trix Tank, who doesn't have his passive to save his life this time around. Chekyo will strike pay dirt this time around and pick himself up a kill.
Itori, pretty much the only one with a massive XP lead that we're seeing. 2 levels on Mecha Black in this solo lane. Pretty much everyone almost dead. Even right now, Zeros is obviously going to keep up his farm because he doesn't really have to rotate to these fights on this Nuwa pick. He can kind of just go into the fire shards to provide support, ward coverage, that sort of thing, and then just keep farming. But besides that, relatively even. E-Chrome did get that 6 solo kill, so he's looking at a level lead here as well. But Belt Slap not really running away with anything right now. Small lead, but they haven't pulled any of these big neutral objectives yet.
Too bad we can't divide out how much damage Zeros has done with just his ultimate versus the rest of his kit, because he's sitting 3rd in the damage charts right now, 4,300, but I'm willing to bet that all of that is just from the fire shards that he's thrown basically on cooldown. He'll have another chance to use him here. Groggy Strike by Trix Tank off the mark. Chekyo dashes out. Ray Shadow gets mezzed in place and hit by the epic uppercut and will land right into a dark portal. Beads have to be used to get the jungler out. Trix Tank will zone away Marcus to make sure that they can't go back into the fight. Johnny decides to dive back in, but nobody will be able to find a kill just yet. Ray Shadow with the stun just holds Johnny out. Big bomb just off the block bar Marcus, and that'll be the end of his life. Zero puts him down with the Shining Metal.
Zeros is doing crazy amounts of burst damage right now, but it looks like they don't have anything to continue this chase. Hold that thought as the fire shards are able to pick up a double kill for Zeros.
Zeros wants a 3rd one here, can get it, but Ray Shadow is able to slip right by. Maybe he can get a 3rd one here by taking down Chekyo under the tower. No, it'll be Johnny credited to the kill, but a 3-for-1 trade here. Belt Slap with the advantage of the fight, and Itori fighting at the Phoenix this entire time up against Mecha Black. So we know the state of the game here, 4K gold, 8K XP, and Phoenix dives galore on the right side.
I kept peeking over to see if Itori was going to make the big rotation over when they were fighting at Tier 2, and then, you know, you look at the team fight for a bit, look back, and they're fighting at Phoenix at that point. This is that massive lead that Itori has built up in this solo lane, as the Gold Fury obviously is going over to Belt Slap after that big team fight victory. A huge gold spike we just witnessed, J-Mac. Looking about 6K gold, almost 5K in the lead for Belt Slap after that Gold Fury went down.
Yeah, big one there. So the Gold Fury, a Tier 1 tower, and 3 kills, almost 4, up against Mecha Black there, but he made it out, even despite the fact that him and Itori were fighting around, you know, Mecha Black's Phoenix at that point when there's still a Tier 2 tower standing out. So Belt Slap, a very commanding early lead in this game, 15 minutes in, and they've got the lead where game number 1, it was about 17, 18 minutes before they were finally get the ball in their court.
Yep, as Zeros' build is really starting to shape up here. Going for the Soul Gem, obviously a pretty solid pickup on Nuwa specifically. You don't really get too many characters that get the use out of this item anymore ever since you get double flat pen now, so you really don't have many free slots, but Nuwa, obviously the Fire Shards gets a pretty good use out of it. Great burst damage as Marcus is going to have to beat here. The chase will ensue.
Oh no, the dash gets caught there on the wall. That should be a dead Marcus. Maybe on the other side, though, they can get a pick on E-Chrome. He'll go over the wall, but so will Mark and Ray Shadow. They'll claim a kill up against E-Chrome to trade out a 1-for-1 or at least to trade out 1-1 in the engagement as a whole. But they don't want to just leave it at the 1-1, they being belt slap. They want the kill. A dive on a Chekio and Ray's Shadow. Ray does have the stun, but it's an ultimate out of Johnny to make sure to immune it out. Ult comes out from Chekio. Johnny gets leaped on twice, once again, but he's not concerned about the damage coming out here. He's not concerned about Chekio, but nobody is concerned about Mecha Black except Itori batting away at him in the back of the fight the entire time. Ray's Shadow has to use that destruction to stay alive, but may only be delaying. He jumps in place. Johnny gets one. Zeros gets Ray's Shadow, and Mecha Black gets sent back to base on his own accord because of Itori, with Mark surely behind in the grayscale screen.
Finally, we are seeing this Fed Bologna make her way over into these team fights. I was wondering when you're going to use this massive lead that you've accumulated at this point. Obviously, split pushing and going under the Phoenix is all well and good, but helping your team win these team fights is definitely what you need to be doing at this point. Make sure you put this game away. So, Itori making the long con rotation over just to ensure that that team fight goes his team's way. Solid pick, but it looks like they're grouping for towers here over the neutral objective. The Pyromancer and the Fire Giant still available if Belt Slap wants to go for it.
Zeros will just push this one by himself. He'll take about a third of its health bar. Trix Tank loses a lot of his health trying to steal those offerings away. He'll call it calculated, though, no matter what. As they do get the obelisk to the side of Belt Slap. And Belt Slap still holding on to that devastating gold lead. 7,000 now up with the help of that last fight, with the help of the towers they've been getting. And Itori hasn't had to make their presence known in team fights. All they're doing is keeping Mecha Black out of the fights, and it seems to be working out pretty well for Belt Slap.
I would say so. I mean, whenever you're winning a team fight and then you look over and see your Bologna at the Phoenix line, I want to keep harping back at this because it was way too early for a Bologna to be at the Phoenix line. You're just like, okay, that lane's probably going pretty good. We don't have to put any attention over there. I mean, when was the last time you saw Johnny over there helping a blue buff? Like, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to babysit his solo lane at this point, so he's able to make his presence known elsewhere. Obviously, Ray's Shadow doesn't think he can even kill that Bologna, so he's not making any presence over there as well. So smart play, but here we go. We're about to see if he can. They're going to go for the gank.
Want the kill on Itori. Eagles Rally is here, but it's another double leap in. Fire Shards deal some damage through. Itori is alive for the time being, but another root with that Groggy Strike from Trix Tank. And this is harping back to what you were talking about with picks and bans, where this team just feels out of Belt Slap like it's a comp designed to counter this Kali. But it's not just countering this Kali, it's countering everybody that's trying to run at them. The CC is just too much. Johnny's damage is too much for Chekio. He can't sustain through that one. But it really does feel like Belt Slap's comp is just designed to peel for everybody.
Yeah, that's just kind of the Kumba pick at work, right? It just comes with so much CC. Obviously, Itori can just stop any sort of auto attacker. Mark is way too far up right now.
Does have dash to get out. Itori will chase down the mid laner and 3 levels up. Should be a kill for Itori. Aegis will buy Marcus a little bit of time, but the bludgeon is on point from the solo laner. Itori finally joining the team fights and finding a 4th kill for himself. Belt Slap still up in this fight, and Trix Tank will continue to taunt them by continuously throwing out that mez and holding down 2.
Yeah, I have no idea why Marcus pathed that way. I guess he thought that he had more damage or more sort of backup, but look at the levels of the people you're running at. I mean, there's nothing a level 6 Agni can do that far up. Trix is a one-man peel machine, can pretty much just walk up and get huge value out of his mez every time. I mean, last time he just mezzed, obviously Ray's Shadow pre-beads, and then also ended up beating that epic uppercut, so anytime he uses his CC, he's still just getting incredible value. That's that one-man peel show that Kumba brings. Obviously, from behind, it's sort of difficult to make use of it, but when you're ahead, you just stand in front and you're just a walking CC bot that no one can get past.
Yeah, one of those more polarizing picks in the support role. Like you said, you ahead, Kuma Karna is probably the worst thing in the world to have to fight against. Behind, it almost feels like a free pick for your team to just continuously bully, but so far, it's been Belt Slap in control of this entire game from basically minute number 1. Sure, Thunderhead were able to get a first blood, but it was turned around immediately. And maybe a turnaround here. Dark Portal locks Ray's Shadow in place. He'll be able to jump himself out, get back to safety. But he always forgets that there's a new one. I always forget that there's a new wall who can just press 4 and end that streak.
I mean, that's what I would never tell my jungle to pick a Kali for that reason specifically. You can't get Aegis, and anytime you do get out with 1 HP and you think you're safe, the Fire Shards are going to come in and just bring you back to reality. It looks like Marcus once again is just way too far up trying to help out his squad. He is going to fall as well. At the very least, there is no Fire Giant on this side of the map, so they have some time before that starts to be looked at, but Mecha Black also just super far up.
Just the CC chain from this Kumba alone is such a menace up against any of these players. Mecha Black had to use his only mobility to get out, but every single opportunity that he's had to get away from here. Johnny thought that the kill was over, and he wanted to make sure to get back in range to get that one. Trickstank finds a pick against Mark. It's a deicide here for Belt Slap. 21 minutes into the game, and they can go straight to the Fire Giant if they wish, which is seemingly what Itori had done there for a moment. I thought he was trying to solo Fire Giant for a brief moment in time here, but no, he will just get some wards out there while Belt Slap take out the Primal Fury.
Yeah, he definitely pinged it and said, hey, teammates, get over here, but at this point, just get the Primal Fury, back it up, go over there. I still think they certainly could have forced it. I mean, look at these timers. Mecha Black's still 23 seconds, but playing it safe, probably the smarter way to go about this. They have a massive lead as is, so they don't have to really force anything there. I mean, they staggered their deaths. I think that was Thunderhead's whole plan as to why they were all posted so far up, even after that fight was lost. Try to get Belt Slap pulled as far away from that neutral objective as possible so no one's able to pull the Fire Giant in. They decided it worked out. So despite a 13k gold lead, you still have that Fire Giant swing on the table, which is better than not having it on the table, obviously.
True, and not just Fire Giant. I gotta imagine that Thunderhead could have some strong siege potential, at least defenses, to their name when it does inevitably come down to that point here. I mean, what's Thunderhead's way back in to some of these defensive fights around their Phoenixes?
I mean, at this point, you have to call out Ray Shadow's target, and everyone needs to be on that target, because if this man does get a reset, that's your best option, because we've already seen what happens when he doesn't get a reset, and that's Zeros is going to finish that kill from across the map, as he just, I think he just did 60% of Marcus's HP.
Yeah, I'm wondering where Marcus's health bar went, because it was only fire shards that hit. That's that power of that soul gem popping in.
And that Archmage's gem that Zeros just finished.
Oh, he did go for Archmage. Man, we haven't seen Archmages in such a long time.
This is the only pick that gets the benefit out of it, but you're seeing firsthand when it does. I mean, I don't even know if it procced on Marcus specifically. It probably parked on someone with more HP, but either way, that just adds so much damage to the fire shards when you're not even around them.
Gross, man. I remember when that item came through, everybody was crying. It's going to be the new WoW meta, Archmage new WoW, feared in every one of your games, and then it never really happened. We saw it for a little while, and now we get reminded as to why it could be so good. As a fight around the right side, Phoenix is going south for Thunderhead. Mecha Black goes into 4, and then straight to his grave. Marcus doesn't have many options either. He'll be able to dash away, but he's being chased out by the front line, by the tanky boys here of Belt Slap. Beads hold him out for only an extra moment as Johnny cleans up the kill. It's now 4 up for Belt Slap. And 23 minutes in, they don't need the fire. Well, they already grabbed the fire giant.
Killed them
They'll
both.
just go ahead and take this Titan, end the game, and take the set. Belt Slap with a 2-0 win.
While that whole 4v4 or 4v3 siege was happening, Mark and Czechia were trying to get the Phoenix as Itori just 1v2'd them under Phoenix and chased them around the whole time. I was just watching the map as Itori was able to do that, but very clean play by Belt Slap. Obviously, they got the pressure they needed, and even though they didn't have that lead in the early game in the first set, this game looked very Belt Slap to me, very one-sided.
Yes, a very convincing win here in game number 2 for Belt Slap. We'll take it to a quick break, and then we'll come back to break down that game. Game number 2, a little bit more decisive here for Beltslap, maybe a little bit earlier on as they clean it up. They take game 2 and they take the set over Thunderhead. They'll qualify themselves into the EUSCC as our 3rd team to now join the ranks. And with only 3 more to go, still a chance out here for Thunderhead to make it back through. But Beltslap, from minute number 1, sure, they dropped first blood to Thunderhead, but they're able to pick that one up immediately with the rotation from Johnny. And Trelly, kind of ever from that point onward, Beltslap were just in complete control.
Yeah, I think Itori getting that solo kill early on as well pretty much dominated that solo lane. No junglers really went over to that right side of the map at all. They didn't need to. At that point, I think Kali was saying, I can't even kill that Fed Bologna, so I'm going to stay away from Itori as much as I can, as well as, you know, Johnny was like, I don't have to help you. I'm going to come over here and help over the left side of the map, so they didn't have to.
Yeah, left side seemed to be where a lot of the aggression was, and really kind of diving back into this game. That's where pretty much all the fighting was. I mean, sure, we had the early rotation from Johnny in, and then we see a team fight just a little bit later in the game, 13 in. Kills were even. Gold was still slightly up for Beltslap. But this team fight, this 4v4 this entire time here was so back and forth, but it was Beltslap at the end who come up with the big advantage.
Yeah, this is one of those super long team fights where no one really can tell who's winning, and then a big string of poke right here to Marcus just facilitates everything you need to. And now you're us on the back end where Thunderhead's like, oh, we can't go anymore, guys, let's get out, and it's just try to save each other one after one, and everyone just slowly trickles down.
And then you have the problem of these low health targets. Oh man, we can't quite get that kill. And then you remember, oh, we have a new wall. We have Zeros here who can clean up the kill, so we don't have to expend all these resources diving a tank under a tier 1 tower to get a kill. They slammed 3 there, and on the opposite side, that was the point where we were seeing Itori versus Mecha Black at the Phoenix. The next fight that comes like 17 minutes into the game, that's again on this left side. We see it's Itori versus Mecha Black again. This time it was at the Obelisk, not quite at the Phoenix. But it just came down to Beltslap's 4v4 being more potent because, again, they just didn't need Itori in a lot of these early game fights to be a part of their team fights.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that POV, you can just see at how little pressure was on Zeros this whole game. I mean, on a pick like Nuwa, yeah, this whole set specifically, I mean, he didn't die at all on the Zeus game, and now he goes 8-1 on the Nuwa pick here. It just seems like Kali, again, Ray Shadow picking this Kali into a god like Nuwa, where if you do get ahead, sure, you can just pop your beads and blender through the minion explosion and hopefully get a kill, but if you don't, Nuwa just has so much burst, can self-peel, go up into the fire shards, kill you after your ult. It just seemed like not a great matchup.
Come on, Zeros. Only 23,000 player damage. You did like 60% of Marcus's health in one shot. I was expecting like 30, 35k out of this mid laner here, but only sitting at 23,000 on Nuwa. No, very impressive game here out of Beltslap's mid laner and jungle. Both of them putting up impressive numbers across the board. Even Echrome here on this Izanami, 17,000 damage to his own. Trixie, I think putting up 10k on a Kumbhakarn is actually really impressive because it feels like anytime I play Kumbhakarn, I'm doing like 3k damage.
I mean, I was going to say the exact same thing. All he has is single target damage and a Mez that does no damage. So doing pretty much even damage with a Bacchus with huge AoE abilities that can hit. You can get a 5-man Intoxicate that does like 2,000 damage with the whole team essentially. So doing that much damage on the Kumba is a feat in its own right.
Yeah, strong play here out of Beltslap. They'll get to move themselves on in the bracket. Or not even in the bracket. In this whole thing, they go straight up into the EUSCC now as our 3rd team. They'll join Team Copyright and Team Bisco up there in the EU Smite Challenger Circuit. Still one more team today to make it there between Winter Frogs and Late to Scrims. That'll be our 4th and final set of today. But then we still have 2 more slots after that, which will be filled out tomorrow. Thunderhead just F6 will be waiting their opposition, and we'll also have Late to Scrims or Winter Frogs joining alongside here to see where everything all pans out for the EUSCC. One more game today, and then still 2 more slots to fill out. We'll see which of our 2 teams in our next match will make it there right after this break.
Holy shit! It's Smite's birthday! I have to get everyone a card.
Oh, come on. Again?